big migration has moved from owning to renting. Is that the trend we're going to continue to see from here on out, or is that just a short-term fix for the bigger problem? Stay tuned to this episode of The Den.
The Den, powered by the Lions Group, a show that explores trending topics in real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. We're a small team of professionals with over $400 million in sales and nearly 2,000 successful transactions. You're listening to time-tested experts and industry leaders. Here's a refreshing look at real estate happenings and more. Welcome to The Den.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Den. And today we're going to be talking about the migration toward renting. Is that a trend that's going to continue? But before I get to that, let me introduce my friends, my partners, my co-hosts, the fellow members of the Lions Group. To my right, Paul, Hammy the Rockberry, Aspen, the Ninja Gruen, and the boss, Shannon Martin Martinez. And my name is Ben, the big migration Lions. I like to fly south for the winter. Have you seen this geese flying south of the V? I always forget. I'm like, we are in the South.
Yeah.
And we see the V. Last year, a memory popped up on my Facebook and it had a double V. And I was like, wow. I was like the guy who saw the double rainbow. Remember that? Wow, dude, the double rainbow. I was doing that with geese. And it was the migration south, but we're seeing a different type of migration in real estate. We're seeing a migration toward renting. And is that a trend that's going to continue? And let's talk about some of the pros and cons of renting and what is actually causing that migration right now. Shannon.
All right.
There's been a big migration in the real estate world toward people renting versus buying. And it's people wanting to rent, not wanting to own. What do you think is causing that? Do you think that's a trend that's going to continue?
Affordability. I think that's our biggest issue we're having right now. I think that it makes sense for a lot of people. And especially right now, it's just too expensive to buy. So I think that, is it going to continue for a while? I think, honestly, I think it's going to change as interest rates start to lower.
Yeah.
I think that as those rates start ticking down, it starts making more sense because then owning becomes more affordable than renting. But right now, renting is a little bit more affordable because you have the cost, which rents are high as well, but then you also have maintenance on top of that. And so at some point when those rates come down and the prices are a little cooler, that makes more sense than renting.
Yeah. I was just looking online at homes 300K and under, and I'm like, oh, there's just skinny pickings right now. I mean, there just really isn't a lot.
74.
70.
I just sent it out this morning. There's 74 in San Juan County.
74 homes, 300,000 or under in San Juan. And that includes everything. I mean, that's like single wides all the way up to
condos, manufacturers.
Yep. Okay. Wow.
And a family looking for a house, that sounds like quite a bit on the market. But when you consider a lot of them might be non-financeable single wide trailers, some of them may be condos, things that don't work for a general family looking for a home. You can take a big chunk of those out right away when you start looking at, okay, now when we're looking at family homes, how much of those are good family homes is probably closer to 20 or less.
Well, and I just ran some numbers this morning and I was just saying, look, if you bought a $300,000 house and assuming this is not a good assumption, but assuming you didn't put any money down, so you just amortize $300,000 over 30 years at 6.25% interest, which is about the prevailing rate right now. Your monthly payment's about $1,800 a month. But that doesn't include property taxes and that doesn't include property insurance. So when you add those in, you're well over $2,000, you're $2,100 a month to buy a $300,000 home that may be not exactly what you're looking for. It's not your perfect home for most people. And so then are you settling to take on a $2,200 a month payment, or should you just rent for $2,000 or $1,800 a month?
Right.
Although the rental market's pretty brutal out there. Aspen, what are your thoughts with with that scenario I just posed right there? $300,000, maybe get 70% of your wants and 30%.
That's a huge monthly payment too.
Yeah.
That is not I wouldn't even consider that a first time home monthly payment for this area. Now, if we're looking up in Durango, I'll tell you that there's probably 20 or under, and all of them will be studios or one bedroom condos or manufactured homes that you don't own the land. So it's hard to see the both scenarios because we have Durango, which is actually outpriced. But then we have here, which is outpriced for our area. I don't think it's realistic for people. And I have such heartburn. I was actually just talking to our friends about this whenever we were up in Houston this week. People, if they get approved up to 40% of, their income for a house price, I would say 98% of people are taking that 40%. They're looking at their max the whole time. What happens if your AC goes out? What are you going to do? Because at this point, when you factor in childcare, stuff for school, sports, food, gas, utilities, you're probably not saving anything for the month. Vacations, I have a real heartburn with it because you used to be able to find at least something for a decent price. And now our starter homes are more than I could afford for my second home. Yeah. So yes. I have big heartburn with it, but I don't know what the solution is.
So let's just dig into that a little bit. So in a scenario where you're looking at paying $300,000 for a home, you're getting maybe 70% of your needs and wants list, 30% you're not getting. So
I would almost say a fixer-upper at that price. Yeah. There's going to be stuff that probably, like the roof's probably a little bit old.
Yeah.
Maybe the furnace is at the end.
Yeah. You may have a 1-car garage versus a 2.
If you have a garage.
If you have a garage, that sometimes is converted. You may need to be doing a bunch of updating on the inside of the house. So then if you're in that position, do you just sit and wait? And do you rent for the versatility of it, or just that you don't want to stretch yourself too thin? I mean, what do you do as a buyer?
I think it depends what your goals are, because I've said many times, I don't think everyone should buy a home. Even people that can, I don't think necessarily should buy a home. If you're wanting to travel and kind of be a nomad and you're going to be traveling across the world, you actually it might be better for you just to rent, because you might be able to find a really good deal in some parts of the world, and maybe it's a little bit higher here, but it all kind of works out. Maybe you want to invest more and you live in a area where you have good rent, and buying a house would use all of your investments, but you want to retire early and travel, or do, I don't know, whatever you want. I always say travel because that's what I want to do. And that's kind of the scenario that I think of. If you don't want to stay in one place for a long time, it doesn't really even make sense to buy a house unless people say, well, then you can sell it and get the money. Well, yeah, you can, but typically houses bring in, 3% appreciation a year. Obviously, that's been very, very different these last few years, but typically that's what we're going to see. You'll get more by investing your money then at that point. So it really depends what your goal is. And I do think home ownership should be attainable for everybody, but I don't think everyone should do it. I don't think it fits for everybody.
See, that's a good point. That's a good point. It should be attainable for everybody, but it may not be the right option for everybody. But there should be something out there for everybody to be able to do it.
Hi, I'm Ben Lyons, a partner at the Lyons Group. We're dedicated to making your real estate experience the best it can be. If you're looking to buy or sell, go to sjcbroker.com and watch our informational video series. These videos break down the process and shed some light on buying or selling. While you're there, schedule a private consultation with one of our partners. We'd love to sit down, talk strategy, and give you a real advantage in today's market. You deserve the best. So take those steps, and we'll see you soon. Now back to the show.
So what do you think, Shannon? I mean, do you just hunker down and wait for the right property, or do you go ahead and sign a 6-month or a year lease? If you're in that scenario, or you can afford maybe $300,000, but you're really not finding what you want. I mean, how does that?
Yeah, it might make more sense to rent. The market always changes. The market always, there's ebb and flow. Now, there's some times where you should have bought a few years ago, and we saw that, pre-COVID. If you were sitting on the fence before then, and then you decided you wanted to buy during COVID, you probably missed the boat. You probably made a mistake. Mm-hmm. But hindsight's 20/20, but yeah, I mean, I think that if you're not getting what you want and you're really in a pinch right now, prices are elevated. I do think we have kind of grown and grown and grown and grown. Now it's changing direction right now. So right now, I think it's a good idea to just sit and wait if that's what you need to do.
Stack your chips.
Yeah. Save more money for your down payment, wait for more stuff to come on the market, wait for interest rates to drop, all these things that are going to come into play and start changing for the better. That's going to make the optimal time to buy. Of course, everybody's going to be buying then too. So
and so that, and we've had many of episodes where it's like,
when's the right time to buy? Well, whenever it's right for you.
For you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever it's the right time for you, whenever you've got your chips stacked and you're ready to make a move, then it's a good time to buy, regardless of what the market's doing. Speaking of chips being stacked and poker face, look at that poker face over there. Have you ever seen such a poker face?
I was just going to say it's halfway through the episode and it's coming to me now.
we're saving the best for last. Paul Berry, what are your thoughts with the migration toward renting? Is this a trend we're going to continue to see?
Well, I just had this conversation with my daughter. She got her first job. She's up in college at Fort Lewis. She just got her first job, $18.75 an hour.
Golly, almost $19 an hour.
Yeah. She worked, I don't know how many hours it was. I don't know the math, but she got a $400 check, right?
Wow.
She can't afford anything. That was 2 weeks worth of work because she's part-time, because she's a student. I said, it's going to take you just to get a first and last on a place up in Durango. Months.
Oh, and good luck even finding a place up there, and you're going to have roommates.
And you're going to have a ton of roommates, and then you have no money for living. So I think I'm going to go back to what we talked about before. I mean, wages are at a point right now where affordability is just running away from us, whether it's buying or renting. Rents are still going up. I'm not an advocate of rent control either, but there's at some point we've got to address the underlying issue, which is costs are so high and wages are so low. Like we talk about affordability in homes, it still costs as much as the homes are worth. It's not like you can build a house for $100,000 and sell it for $400,000. That's not what's going on. The replacement cost of homes is still about where they're valued at right now. And people can't afford it.
I still think a big solution would be tax incentives for
the builders.
For the builders.
Yeah.
Because that's what we need. We need homes.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what I think. I think we've talked about this before. I do think there's a wage issue, but I don't think that's going to solve the issue. I think we have a supply and demand issue.
Yeah, right now I agree.
I think that's our biggest
I think we have
problem.
a wage issue too, but we need more houses, like millions more homes in the U.S.
But if we have millions more houses, I mean, does that really bring them back to affordability?
I actually don't think it will, because they're going to be nicer homes, because you can build a house and just put in a few more upgrades, build it in a certain part of town, and you're going to be able to sell that exact same house for more.
Exactly.
But
there's no incentive for the builder to build, a tiny home for somebody that's actually affordable. We said this a couple of podcasts ago. Who's going to take the hit? Is it the builder? Is it the buyer? Is it the seller? Somebody's got to take a hit for affordability.
And right now it's the buyer.
And it's the buyer.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the cost of concrete boards, nails, roofing material, all that stuff is not going down. So,
and we have a economy right now where we're tariffing everything. So anything that's coming from outside the country costs
wood,
a lot more. So wood, we're not really harvesting here anymore. We've got to get it from overseas.
We get almost everything from Canada. Yeah.
And there's heavy tariff issues with Canada right now. So we're not helping the cost issue. So when we talk about affordable housing, and then we're saying, well, we need fairness in our trade, well, that doesn't help with affordable housing. So if we have to put out more inventory, that's at a higher cost.
Yeah, but in converse to that, so you have the tariffs that are driving prices up. Fair enough there. But there's also a lot of job creation. And that really goes to the core of, in my opinion, what the biggest issue is bringing wages up. And so, if you just kind of relate yourself to grandma who gave you $5 when you graduated, right? To her, that $5 was a lot of money. Now it's the same thing for us. When we give $100 for a graduation, that to us is a lot of money.
And it's like,
that's
nothing.
That's nothing. That's like a dinner and a movie.
Well, for like Paul's example with his daughter, $19 an hour. In college, I was making $10 an hour, and I could afford a nice place to rent. Mm-hmm. I rented a place for me and Logan, and it was nice, and it was, safe, and I did have 2 roommates, but that's fine. You're in college, that's what you expect. But I was working full time too. Let's say even someone working full time in college making $20 an hour, I don't even think they could afford a place in Durango. I still don't think she could find somewhere to get up there. And also not even that. I mean, have you guys looked at the price per pound of chicken lately? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I felt like back in my day, I was at Sam's Club yesterday. I'm like, it's $5 a pound. Remember,
Yeah.
it was 99 cents a pound. And they
Sure.
were literally the smallest pieces of chicken I've ever
Yeah.
seen in
We
my
got
life.
5 grocery bags last night, $235.
Yeah.
So it's not just the housing cost. It's people also can't afford life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is expensive.
So then it goes back to, again, the wage disparity between the affordability. Like you were saying, Paul, the affordability is running away from us. We got to supplement the wages, because that's not going to come down. Again, concrete, boards, nails, the price of those don't ever come down.
Well,
right?
and then if you increase what you're paying the workers, there's another increased cost that you have to make up on the back end.
Mhm.
Sure.
When you sell that product, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's a tough problem.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody has a really solid solution right now. I think it's a holistic problem, which is going to need a large scale holistic solution.
So you think that the renting trend, because that's the topic of the podcast today, is going to continue?
Well, I think too, we're in a instant gratification. Like, I need this done now. It's much easier to call the landlord, have the landlord come and fix it, as opposed to waiting for the next check to come in, possibly be able to pay to fix the heater, the AC or something like that broke. Whereas you can pay the same every month and have somebody else fix that AC. It's their investment. I think there's an easier, for people that aren't making that much, can't afford the luxuries.
Yeah, the risk is a lot less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they don't have those unexpected expenses that we do.
The risk is you might have to find another place to rent whenever your lease comes up, or they raise the rent. That's
and they don't
kind of
need the
risk.
rainy day fund that most of us need that
Mhm.
owns something. If the heater goes out, I got to have the funds to fix that. Whereas they just call somebody and go.
Yeah.
Come and
Usually
get it
they
done.
don't finance hot water heaters or furnaces. I mean, now they're starting to create some options for that. But yeah, if you have a major issue, you better have the funds to be able to pull it, or room on your credit card. That's a tough situation. I do think that it's going to be a trend that's not going to go away for a while because of the affordability factor. People are really going to be more cautious with where they put their money, make sure they're stacking their chips before they make a move.
Well, another number that we have, what's the median income in New Mexico? 48,000, I think. More?
No, it's about that. Yeah, the average
50,000?
home that a person in New Mexico, all in Mexico, could afford is about 160,000.
And the average home price is
Over 300,000.
315.
Yeah. Yep. So you have 45,000. Is that considered poverty level?
Yeah.
I mean,
One thing that I think is a pro for New Mexico, I don't want to say a pro, but it kind of is we do get more back in tax from the federal government than we pay out. So one thing that I think it is actually going to really help people, and I already have some friends that are so thankful for it, is the free childcare. Seeing the free childcare, the free college, and I know it's not free. I know someone pays for it, but I'm happy for my tax dollars to go to helping people who need it, because then the money's going back in the economy. They're able to go to work. Maybe now they have 2 incomes instead of just one because someone doesn't have to stay home. There's more daycare workers. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it than just that. So I'm hoping that since that was just implemented, maybe we see that help people be able to afford. I know
That's the Democrat over there advocating for trickle-down economics.
But I mean, it's true though, because if
Yeah.
someone has to stay home, that means they're not
Yeah.
working. That means they're having to save more. That, it just, you're not able to go out to eat. You're not able to do all of these things that you would be able to do now that you have. Like, I would not go to work if I was only bringing home $400 a month, working full time, and my kids were in daycare. I would just cut costs and stay home.
My wife was a full-time teacher, had her degree, had her certification. She stayed home for 10 years because when we did the math on it, childcare would have cost more than she would have made working full-time.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that actually frees up some stuff for people. I'm interested to see how that turns out.
Yeah. I mean,
When does that start?
It was like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
and there's no delineation between what,
There's no income level.
No income level. So Shannon, you got any thoughts on that part of it?
No, I'd rather not say.
Oh, come on. You can't shy away from.
No, I mean, I always think it's good taking care of families, and I have no problem with that. The problem is, like you said, free isn't free. And now you've got plenty of people that could not have afforded their childcare now have it. But you also have people that could afford it now that don't have to afford it. And you also have, and that goes out to the taxpayer. And now you have people maybe that, now they're going to put their kid in childcare, but they don't want to go to work. I mean, so you've got a balance of that. Whenever you start giving out things for free, you have people that take advantage of that, and that rises costs. We typically, when we have programs like this, we end up with massive amounts of waste to help this little group of people. That's why I take issue with it. I think it's fantastic. I would love to help people, but I think it just needs to have better parameters on it. I think when we just start throwing free things out there, we just start throwing money away.
And I don't know if there's a requirement for like both parents to have a job or something. Obviously, I don't have kids in daycare age, so I haven't looked into it. All I know is there's no income limit. So I don't know what the other rules around it are. But people take advantage of everything. I mean,
exactly.
I'm sure all of us in this room take advantage of certain tax loopholes.
Yeah.
Everyone takes advantage of something one way or another.
Sure.
So I don't really care.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean,
it's probably not the best way to look at it, but if someone is getting childcare, and also like maybe they are taking advantage of it, but maybe they need the help. Maybe they need the break. I'd rather a kid be somewhere safe getting food and care than in a place where maybe they're not. I don't know. I'm not worried about it.
I think there's so much fraud and poor fiscal responsibility in the government that a program like this is probably pretty good. If you keep this program and work on some of the other stuff that doesn't work, because I know you talked about oil and gas. I know they're starting to relax some of the regulations on oil and gas that were put in years and years ago because technology has gotten so much better that New Mexico has been able to say, the pit rule, because it was just, we were dumping stuff into the wash. The technology has come about to recapture a lot of that water, to clean it back up and to pump it in the ground. So a lot of the regulations that we had back then when the pit rule was started, we don't have those anymore. Allows more business, more production to be done with those lax regulations, which in turn creates more tax revenue, which in turn creates programs that could help with the economy.
Yeah. And I think in the spirit of what, the daycare component, the spirit of that is fantastic. And like what you said, love the idea of being able to help the families that need the help. But then when it's just passed without the guardrails, that's the component because putting guardrails back on, it takes forever. It's hard. Or then you get all this pushback. You get people entrenched that say, the example you just used, put my child in daycare, but I'm not going to go get a job. How do you stop stuff like that? So I think if the guardrails are in, it helps with the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish.
There could be guardrails. We don't know.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, I haven't looked into it too much, but there's not enough.
The only people I know that are doing it both have jobs and both work, and they were already paying for daycare beforehand, and now they're not.
So
and I know they're going to spend more money out on the fun things. So which is good.
Yeah.
I know it's like, well, then they're getting the fun stuff. I don't care because it really is good for the economy. It goes back to especially here, we have such a good local presence with things and I think people really do. Like if someone goes out and buys a side-by-side, they're going to a local place to buy that. So if they're going out and buying a boat or whatever it might be, going out to dinner, we have a lot of chains here, but I'd like to think some of it's
hopefully
going
they're
back.
going to a local restaurant.
And the people that work in the chains live here too.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting that tip money. So as far as trickle down economics, I know I don't actually agree with all of that, but I think in this sense, it does make sense to me. And I hope that it creates more of a cushion for people to be able to put more back into the economy and in turn have more options with their health.
She's a conservative at heart, Paul.
Well, I think
I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true. But I think one of the big things that would help is we've talked about wages a little bit. What about the cost of living, the cost of gas, the cost of, heating and the utilities, those types of things? We keep making these, we're shutting down power plants. Our utilities are going up. Those are one of the things that,
but that's okay because all you have to do is just give people more money to compensate for that.
Yeah.
Yes, you can give it to me. My name is
that's the slippery slope I talk about. We keep doing things like that. We keep saying, we'll just give people the money to do that. Well, at some point, it just doesn't make sense to keep giving people money to solve every problem.
I actually don't agree with stipends and stuff. I don't think that really makes sense because you're going to go and spend it right away. But most people honestly are spending it on groceries or rent or,
I mean, if we're cutting out where we're getting, our resources from, and then we, subsidize it. And we subsidize now people's, their healthcare, their food, their daycare, their, 90% of what they're getting. You're now the government is subsidizing, but where is it getting that? You're just going to take it from other people, and at some point it doesn't make sense. So it's not just about like the free healthcare. It's not just about the little programs here and there along the way. It's about the collective whole. We need to figure out, how do we actually produce those things like utilities? How do we produce that to make it low cost? How do we figure out how to make daycare more affordable?
And my whole thing with this is, I actually don't want the government involved in any of this.
Correct.
But I want.
See, I knew she was a conservative.
This is where I have such rub with it, is because I want millionaires and billionaires to go back. And also, I don't even get me started on billionaires. Don't even get me started on that. But I think that I want them building libraries and funding schools and doing all these things, but they're not. It's just not. I mean, maybe some are, but that's how it used to be, is people poured back into the places that they were living. And I just really don't see that anymore. And people still need the help. So I don't want to see, tax incentives come from the government to do affordable housing. I want people that can afford it to do affordable housing. But let's be realistic here. We live in a capitalistic society. That's not going to happen 99% of the time.
Well, so, I wouldn't say 99% of the time, but
you think people here are just building and renting undervalue? I just don't know.
Not necessarily. But what I do think is that there's a lot of philanthropy that goes on. Speaking from someone who's a little bit more conservative with my views, there is a lot of philanthropy that goes on. There are people that really make good money and give back.
I know that, especially the oil field companies around here. I'm not saying there's not.
And most
I'm just saying
is privately funded.
Yeah.
And so I think if you let that, if you were to remove all the other things, all the layers of pressure that we put on a state level, on the Fed level, to a lot of companies, that there would be more giving back, but they're fighting dragons on both sides. And if you look at Hillcorp in particular, they gave every one of their employees every few years,
fantastic company.
They gave them, I think, $30,000 to give to a charity of their choice.
I think it was half goes directly to the employee, and then half goes to the charity, which is, that's incredible.
And I think that's $1 billion company.
I think here we see that a lot more too. I think in like really big cities with a lot more employees, I think we're just in such a bubble here, because we really do have a great community, and the companies that work here, most of them live here, and they're really, the big companies. It's hard to speak on a national level, which is why we're not in national
we are an anomaly in the northwest part of New Mexico, and the southwest part of Colorado, but we need to wind it down. We just actually crossed over our time limit, so I'm going to wrap us up. Great discussion today. It sounds like the affordability component is going to be a big issue for a lot of years to come, until wages can catch up to the cost of living. So the renting trend may be the way to go. A lot of people rent because of the versatility, because they don't want the headache, they don't want the liability of something going out. But still, home ownership is the fastest and number one way to gain wealth in your life. That is proven year over year over year. So if you're in a position to buy, you're stacking your chips, make sure it's the right time, still make that move. But gosh, renting is a great option if you're building up to that point. And I think we're going to continue to see that tool used quite a bit, and probably a little bit more a strategic way. So great discussion. Thank you for that. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. We actually are having our client appreciation event tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be at the Allenton Theater. And if you haven't RSVP'd, reach out to one of the partners here at the Lions Group. You get your choice of one of two movies. Wicked. Is it Wicked Ever After?
Wicked for Good.
Wicked for Good, and Zootopia 2. So two great family shows. We'd love to see you there. Reach out to one of us here, RSVP, and even last minute call-ins. We'll get you in, and we'd love to see everybody tomorrow morning at the movie theater. So thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Den, powered by the Lions Group. Hit the subscribe button to keep informed, and check the show notes below for direct links to our buyer and seller video series. The buyer and seller video series can give you an inside track on taking the right steps in real estate. If you'd like to learn more about the Lions Group or to schedule a consultation, go to sjcbroker.com. Complex markets require complex strategies. The Lions Group can give you a true advantage in any market. Whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial, contact us directly at sjcbroker.com. We're time-tested experts with a client-first approach, and we'll see you next time in the den.